Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Welcome to Maverick Veteran, again with my guest, Harry Brown, very famous man, takes on local terrorists and drug dealers single-handedly. Not a better man for the job, to be fair. So we've got a few things that we want to discuss today, but the first thing I want to talk about is a very good friend of mine, really through the movement, a civilian, but he comes from a military family. He's a huge patriot, and his mother, who looks after him because he's always been quite poorly, so she is a full-time carer for him, and that is Simon Cooper. Now, Simon Cooper always wears the family beret, and he's having a few cardiac problems at the moment. So he may not be able to watch this live, but, you know, all being well, he'll watch it on catch up. So I would just like to, from all of us, wish Simon all the very best of health, get home as quickly as possible, and send my love to him. And of course, Jay, who looks after him 24/7, 365, because she's a loving parent and she sees it as her duty to look after her children, irrespective of what age they may be. So best of luck and much love to both of you. So what's happened? Obviously, Harry couldn't make it because Harry's not always in country. So logistically, it's not always possible. But Honor Oak was on Honor Oak 5, Saturday just past, the 24th of June. I attended that Honor Oak, got there on the Friday night, as many of you will know, got up bright and early, 0400, on the Saturday, and travelled down to southeast London, Lewisham, for the protest. We thought that we would get there early so that we could occupy the ground early, because the police had told us if you occupy the ground in front of the Honor Oak pub prior to the opposition, then we can cancel the event. So we got there early. We advertised it for 9, 10 o'clock, got there early. But no great surprise, really. As soon as we turned the corner, there was between 20 and 30 Antifa, masked, carrying sticks. On the end of each stick was a purple flag. So we had a discussion with them, said that this was a peaceful demonstration. They shouldn't be carrying weapons. They then got a bit uppity about it, and they used those weapons against concerned parents. Basically, that's the bottom line, because everybody that was there in attendance is a concerned parent or a concerned grandparent.
And I think that's a good point, Simon, on the parent side of it, of things, because the reality is that, you know, a lot of these Antifa lot that are turning up there, they're you know, I don't know what they are, whether they're students or unemployed, or, you know, sponging off the parents or sponging off the state, or whatever they're doing, but they don't look like they've got any ability to parent anything, you know, whereas most of the people, probably 90% of the people on our side, are people of my age and your age who know what life's about and have raised kids and grandkids. And I think one of the most horrifying, and obviously we'll see the video in a minute, but what, for me, watching from afar, one of the most horrifying was to see a mother literally getting clubbed over the head by one of these thugs. And, you know, there could very easily have been a stick, a nail in that stick, or some sort of sharp implement embedded. And the guy that did it didn't show any mercy. I think he hit her once and tried to hit her again, you know. Yeah. And I think
I was standing right next to her when it happened.
Yeah.
And yeah, she got clobbered.
Yeah.
Sort of stepped back, but wasn't sort of wasn't scared off.
Oh no, absolutely
and
not.
Stood her ground, and that's
Absolutely.
when the next blow came in, and that's when really the self-defense kicked in. Then,
well, I think from what I saw, Simon, it was very restrained. There was great
well,
restraint.
we basically removed the sticks from about 2/3 of the people that had those sticks. One police constable turned up, a sergeant. He stood bravely between them and us. I had a conversation with him, and he said, "Look, you've caught us on the hop because we've got shift change at 6 o'clock." He very quickly radioed through for some assistance, and that assistance arrived probably within 5 to 10 minutes, and the whole thing was dispersed. Some of those Antifa lot were arrested. None of ours were arrested. We did sustain some injuries, sort of blows to people's heads from the sticks. Some of the sticks were pointed, so that becomes it's not just a weapon then, it's a deadly weapon, because should you get stabbed with that in the wrong place, as you know, Richard, that's end of life.
Absolutely. I mean, the reality is that spears, in days of yore, spears were little more than sharpened sticks. And obviously, as people got more sophisticated and put metal on them or lead on, whatever it was, they became. But 1,000 years ago, you got hit with a spear in the head or in the eye or in the stomach, and it was game over. And I think the other footage I saw, Simon, was there's a guy. It looks like he's been slashed with a Stanley knife up his arm, and that's I don't know who he was. Never seen him. Don't know who he was. Didn't see his face. But it looked like he'd been slashed, and like going into that crowd to take those sticks off people is after what had just happened to that woman. Is 100% legitimate, because they weren't messing about. They came there with intent to commit violence. And here's the thing: they're all masked, they're all armed. We know some of them have actually stabbed someone, and to not act and using minimum force remove those weapons from those people would have been highly irresponsible and cowardly. So the fact that whoever was there had the foresight to get in there, get those sticks, is exactly what should have happened. And
well, it's now under police investigation, so we can't sort of say too much about it other than that. We know names, but we can't discuss names. Obviously, there was a window that was broken in the Honour Oak pub, and a Just Giving page has been put up today to get that Honour Oak pub window repaired. We've now complained to Just Giving to say that that's a fraudulent claim, because as one of the boys attempted to remove the stick from one of the opposition, he pulled the stick back and the opposite end of the stick went straight through the window. So it's damage that Antifa caused. We've passed that on to Just Giving, so we expect that page to be closed down now and monies refunded to those that have been kind enough to donate to the pub. So and that's about it. So we're not going to end it there, because on the 29th of July, we're going to go again to Honour Oak and go through the whole rigmarole again. So that will become Honour Oak 6. Everyone that's in attendance is going to be, again, a concerned parent, grandparent. Every time we go, more information is pushed out on social media. We're gaining ground. The opposition is giving ground away to us. So we'll just keep going until the job's done. On that note, I think it's probably time to show the video of the events at Honour Oak on Saturday, 24th of June. So
Yeah.
that, in a nutshell, in that minute or so video there, shows sort of some of the highlights from Saturday on a road. And as you can see, that poor lady there getting knocked over in a mobility scooter. And it doesn't matter whether it's, done accidentally or on purpose. That shouldn't happen. The police constables that were there that stopped the lady in the mobility scooter taking up a position on the front line because she's a concerned grandparent and parent herself, clearly stuck his boot under the front right-hand wheel of that scooter and tipped it. And that is an absolute disgrace. And several of us had chats with the police immediately after that happening. I had to take that scooter off to one side and repair it because it wouldn't run after that. The lady had to be ambulanced to the local hospital in Lewisham and checked over because she had a bump to her head and grazes to her arms, plus pains in her left leg, which is the leg that she landed on. But it could have been so much worse because had she not lifted her left leg out the way when she did, that would have been a cross injury. So
yeah, I think if you think about there's a few years ago, there was a guy in his mid-50s, I think he was, and he was in London, and there was some sort of disturbance going on. I can't remember what it was about, and this copper pushed him over. Very similar sort of incident to what happened there. And the guy died. He had to die straight away. And that lady, I wonder. I mean, this is the thing as well. I wonder if that poor lady had if the worst that could possibly happen had happened to that lady, would there have been the same furore and flurry of anti-police hatred that there was after that drug dealer was shot dead in Tottenham a few years ago? I mean, and I'm putting it out there because I think that a lot of people talk about two-tier policing, and I've seen two-tier policing at many events, and we've always done our best, Simon, right the way going back to when we were working with the DFLA and the FLA, to always calm situations down, to de-escalate everything, and make sure that there's no confrontation between anybody and the opposition or the police. And that's really us doing the police's job for them. And because they know that a lot of the football is very responsible. They take the mantle on themselves and stop the aggro happening, because they know that it's exactly what the left want. The left want us to be violent. They want us to react. And the police just really, in a lot of instances haven't. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some really good police officers that we always have to do police liaison if you're doing a march. So the ones that we used to do police liaison with in London were grand. But there's a lot of people out there that are hotheads, and they don't read the room and they don't read the situation correctly, and it causes all sorts of problems. So
we had several conversations with the police all through that day on Saturday.
Yeah.
2 police liaisons, fantastic fellas, absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
Spoke in length to the sergeant, and the sergeant turned around whilst he was on his own. He said, "Look," he said, "I understand." He said, "Everything's fine at this moment in time." He said, "You've done what you needed to do. If you go any further, it no longer falls under the self-defense side of life." And I said to him, I said, "Well, we're here to protect you as a lone policeman as much as anything else." And he turned around and said, "I appreciate that as well." He says, "But," he said, "I cannot allow you to protect me. It's got to be the other way around." And as soon as he said that, it just sort of rang alarm bells in my head, because you always support the person on their own, always. That's in our doctrine. That's how we were brought up, isn't it? You never leave any man behind.
Exactly.
And I think if things had really escalated and that poor lady was seriously injured, or worse, it would have kicked off that day.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it. No two ways about it. Like two TSG vans again.
Yeah.
There.
And I think the other thing, Simon,
20 other vans.
Yeah.
Hundreds, it seemed, like, of police on the ground, and they just kept coming.
Yeah, and I think the other issue is in all this, you know, there's right and wrong, and you know, as much as people hate to say it, there's good and evil, and we've got to look at the reason that people are going to Honor Oak. People aren't going to Honor Oak to fight with Antifa. Quite the opposite. People are going to Honor Oak because they're concerned about the sexualization of little children, and it's happening right the way throughout the Western world. It's absolutely obscene. And to have some 30-odd-year-old man, and we've seen the footage, they deny it, but we've seen the footage, twerking and performing sexualized gestures in stockings and suspenders in front of 5-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 8-year-olds, little children, right? And there's an image, and it's burned into my head, and it's almost like the image in Schindler's List of the little girl in the red dress, right? There's the one I'm going to talk about. There's a little girl, and I'm not sure it's on her own. I don't know where it is, right? But she's in a pub at the drag queen story time. I mean, even that, like, what parent?
Yeah.
To me, if you're a parent and you take your child to that, your children should be taken off you and taken into care. Yeah. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
right?
That's all it. I'll let you finish what you're saying, and then I'll just say how I think it's all linked together over the years.
Yeah. So anyway, this image, right? This image, and what we'll do, we'll try, if we're going to do a few more of these, we'll try and get a bit more organized, and we'll get the images so we can show them on screen. But I'll describe the image for anyone that's watching. And I just realized comments aren't on the. Don't know if can you put the comments on there, Si? There we go. Right. So the image is of a little girl standing in the corner of a room with this pervert standing in front of her, dressed as a woman, showing off whatever, and the little child looks absolutely petrified. Absolutely petrified. And, you know, if that's not child abuse, what is? Yeah. That's all I'm going to say on that. And
I think all this is linked to.
It's evil, Simon. It's evil, and we've got to use that word.
100% evil, and the whole thing's part of this agenda. And whose agenda, I don't know, but we all know that over the past few years, men have been emasculated and turned into sort of beta males. You're not allowed to have alpha males or sigma males anymore. Everyone's sort of mamby-pamby. At the same time, the women start to then take the lead, especially at family level. But then everything that's going on with the trans movement has dumbed down motherhood. You know, you're not breastfeeding your child anymore. You know, you're chest feeding and all this sort of shite. Kids tend to go into sort of play groups and schools at a younger age now than they ever did before, with parents now going back to work because of the cost of living. You basically can't afford to be a full-time parent anymore. And so you've got masculine men that were there to protect their families emasculated. You've got women that were mothers, and motherhood itself has sort of been, if you like, shelved. It's not as important anymore. And suddenly you end up with these children that get passed around from pillar to post, stranger to stranger to stranger, being babysitters, childminders, preschool and that kind of thing. The young kids get so used to seeing all these different people, strangers, if you like, not like in our day, you know, never accept sweets from strangers, never accept a lift from a stranger, don't talk to a stranger in the street. All that's gone. They're so now indoctrinated into meeting all these different people that it's opened the door for the trans movement and the paedophilic movement to have the drag queen story time. We'll look after your kids' parents. You're too busy working. The dad can't do anything about it, even though he's against it because he's been totally emasculated. The mum that would have ripped people apart previous can't anymore because she's just a chest feeder that happened to give birth to this young thing. And now she's back at work and has had to hand her child over to these fucking weirdos to perform their sexual acts in front of them.
And I think I think that's not even before we even start talking about the education system. And again, I think if we do this again, Simon, we'll maybe get some of these clips in and play the clips, even though a lot of people have seen them. It's good to play them and discuss them. But there's that girl, and again, some of these kids are kicking back against it, and they're standing up to this nonsense. There's a little lad in a Scottish school who's really taking a stand, very articulate, very intelligent young man, taking a stand against what was being pushed on him. I think it was the trans agenda was being pushed on him. And then there's the girl, I'm laughing. I mean, you shouldn't be laughing. A girl in a Church of England school who's reprimanded for saying that her friend identifying as a cat might have some issues. And this is a 13-year-old girl, Now, I know kids play at, making animal noises when they're about 5 or 6, but they kind of get over that by the time they're 13, And this girl was ripped to shreds by her teacher. And that's happening. They're the ones that we know about. It's happening right the way through the education system. And this is about what we're involved in, Simon, is a civilizational battle. And there's several different groups who are trying to destroy Western civilization. We're talking about Antifa. Again, I'm not sure whether we did this last time. My memory's getting bad. I'm over 55 now, Simon, so I'm sure you'll identify with me. But when we talked about Antifa last time, I don't know if we looked at the roots of Antifa. And when you go back and you dig into it in the 80s, there was a group called Anti-Fascist Action. I think we probably did go over this, but it's worth going over it again for people that didn't see it last time. And Anti-Fascist Action, they were formed really from 3 or 4 groups. There were squadists, I think, from the Socialist Workers' Party who'd been kicked out for being too violent. There were a group called Red Action. Searchlight was involved, and Searchlight split in the early 2000s, and Hope Not Hate was birthed out of Searchlight. Nick Lowles was a leading light in Searchlight, and obviously he's the chief inquisitor now at Hope Not Hate, and takes great pleasure in destroying people's lives, in my opinion. Certainly when we look at what he's done to a certain gentleman called Steve, and obviously I'm aware we're on Facebook, so we've got to be very careful about mentioning certain names. But anyway, so Antifa were basically birthed out of this group called Anti-Fascist Action. Now, there's a very interesting thing about Red Action. Red Action were involved in, they planted one of the bombs that blew up Harrods in, I think it was 1992 or 1993. 2 of the guys got arrested. They got sentenced to life in prison. They were acting as a proxy for the IRA. So they met up with this Irish professor from a university up in the Northwest, and they were working cheek by jowl with the IRA and carrying out active service for the IRA. And nobody knows about this. It's in the public domain, but people don't talk about it. And of course, they were an integral part of Anti-Fascist Action, as was Searchlight and all the people connected with Searchlight that are still on the scene today and still spouting all their anti-patriotic, anti-British rhetoric. And then in the late 90s and early 2000s, the whole thing fell apart, and AFA, Anti-Fascist Action, became a thing of the past. But then 4 or 5 years later, they reformed and came back with a vengeance as Antifa, and now they're an international brand. And it's believed that there are groups of Antifa that are connected with dissident Republicans in Northern Ireland. So you're not dealing with your normal lefties here. You're dealing with absolutely radicalized fanatics who have taken the trans issue as just another weapon to beat the state with, and to beat anyone that they deem to be right wing. And what people have got to realize about Antifa is you can't negotiate with Antifa, because Antifa will not negotiate with you unless you back off and stop being what they consider to be a fascist, which, like I've said before, is anything to the right of Nick Clegg, unless you renounce everything that you've done as an activist, standing up for what's good and what's British and what's right, they will continue to pursue you. That is in their doctrine. That's in their ideology. They're exactly like the Communist Party in China. They're exactly like the Bolsheviks. They're exactly like the Stalinists and the communists in Russia that destroyed so many people's lives. And this is the frightening thing, Simon. This is the thing that really, really worries me. These people live cheek by jowl with the Labour Party. I'm not saying they're all in the Labour Party, but they are very, very closely associated with groups like Momentum, the Socialist Workers' Party, Unite Against Fascism. I'm not saying they're in those organizations, but they're all interconnected.
Yeah.
And you see, you never hear Hope Not Hate condemning Antifa violence. It's interesting, that, isn't it? I wonder why. I wonder why Hope Not. Now, I'm digging into these things and these groups, because we need to know our enemy, and they are the enemies. They are the enemy within. They're the enemies of the British people, without a shadow of a doubt. These people want to destroy the state. They want open borders. They are very, very bad, evil people. They're not doing it because of, well, they might be doing it because of idealism, but their ideology is a wicked and dark ideology, and we've got to put it out there and say, that's what they are, and that's who we're up against. And knowing your enemies is a very, very worthwhile thing. And let's be honest, at the minute, I'm not going to say they're winning. I'm going to say they've won, because they control everything. The left control the education system. The left control, obviously, all the unions. The left have massive influence over the police. They even have influence over the military now. All this identity politics and this agenda.
You mentioned in the military there, my son, who served in the tank regiment, has decided to leave. Because he said he can no longer cope working in an army that's woke. And it all leads into EU military unification, which I've been talking about since 2012, when it became apparent in the Lisbon Treaty of 2009. The head of MI6, Richard Dearlove, spoke to him via another colleague of mine, if you like, contact, has turned around and said, we're doomed. It's already happened. And the Dutch army has been swallowed up into the German army. So the Dutch no longer have an army, and that's only happened recently. The French are in cahoots with the Germans. So there's 3 countries swallowed up. And we're already in defense union with France and Germany. So there's us swallowed up as well. So everything that the left wants, everything that socialism stands for, is happening. And the guts is being stripped away from this country, piece by piece by piece. And unless we alpha males stand up and be counted, along with the alpha females, before we become so indoctrinated in the whole thing that we just say, I can't be bothered anymore.
And that's what they want. Simon, that's what they want. They want you to give up, and they will keep pushing and pushing. And that's why, I mean, we'll go on to Birmingham now, because we've got plans for Birmingham for the 15th of July, and I would highly recommend anybody who can get to Birmingham on the 15th of July. We're going to give more details near the time. We're playing our cards very closely to our chest, but we're going to have a major event in Birmingham that will hopefully breathe life into this movement. And the core of this movement, we said it last week, I'm going to say it again, is football lads and veterans. And the massed ranks are made up of football lads. They turn out, they love the country. They're as patriotic as the veterans. And let's be honest, Simon, And a lot of people won't like me for saying this, but some of them have got a lot more courage than some of the veterans that unfortunately, that just think because they did a bit of service, they can hang up the boots and forget about the country. That's not the way it works, friends. If you're a veteran, you should be standing with us.
You're absolutely spot on. Absolutely spot on. Now, speaking up for the veterans are generally non-political. You know, you join the service when you're young. You're young, you're dumb, you're full of cum, as we used to say. You believe everything you were told. You follow orders without question. The Queen, God love her, was God. And through the government, you followed the Queen's orders and you deployed all around the world, carrying out what you thought were very virtuistic tasks.
And of course they were, Simon. I mean,
they were.
You know,
to us,
you think about you think about Northern Ireland. I mean, it was
Northern Ireland. But leaving that aside, because I class that as civil war within our own, because it's within our own kingdom. So that aside, but we go trotting off to the desert, and then a different desert, and then to the and the Balkans in between, and all the wars and battles that were fought before I joined up. Then and you do it because you're told it's the right thing to do, and because you've been doing it from such a young age, and you signed this oath of allegiance, and you accepted the Queen's shilling, you're going to go and do it without question. When you leave the service, you still have that belief because your oath, you signed it, it's for life. You don't know it's for life when you first sign it, but it is. Now, the way things are now, if I was 18 now, going into service with the knowledge that I've got now, there's no way I'd be signing that oath.
Yeah, I'm the same.
No way.
I'm exactly the same, Simon.
Because and I tell you for why. I tell you for why that is the reason today. There's no way that I would go to war on behalf of this government that is ultimately supporting a monarchy which is openly supporting of the World Economic Forum, the World Health Organization, and all the other bollocks that comes out the United Nations and its several tentacles. There's no way that I would be doing it.
I totally agree.
But I have to maintain my oath because I signed it way back in 1983.
Yep, I totally agree, Sam.
But I have a quiet oath in myself now, and that quiet oath, which overrides my original oath, is to protect the women, children of this country, along with the men that are not in a position to be able to do. So, and that's just the way it is, because I'm so incensed by everything that's going on, and every day something additional incenses me more. And it's almost like being in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. You go into the lunatic asylum and you're perfectly sane, but the longer you stay there, the more mad you become, until such times as you just want to, throw that bloody washhand basin out the window and run away.
Well, that's it. I mean, and the problem is there's nowhere to run to anymore, Simon. That's the issue.
So you may as well just stand, fight, and protect.
You took the words right out of my mouth there, brother. That's exactly what I was going to say. Our old catchphrase: "Stand, fight, and protect," and that's exactly what it's all about.
None of this.
And the thing is,
I was talking about it on the train the other day when they said, see it, say it's sorted. And I was thinking back then to run, hide, and tell. And I was
well, do you know, I honestly believe part of the reason they changed that was a result of what we were saying.
Exactly.
Because we were saying, and it was borne out because you know, there was a few terrorist attacks that happened. The one on the train where the guy had an AK-47, and basically he was disarmed by 2 or 3 guys just jumping on him and beating the shit out of him. And, you know, so it shows that Stand, Fight, Protect actually works. Yeah, we're not going to, Jenny, we're not going to put out where it's going to be in Birmingham just yet, because obviously we want to keep it as a surprise for whoever's going to be surprised by what we're doing. But it's going to be central Birmingham, and it's going to be if you're just there from I guess about early lunchtime, about, I don't know, about 11 to half 11 in Birmingham, somewhere around that. You
11 o'clock would do, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Maybe it's even a bit. Maybe it's 11 to 12. You know,
depends on how far you got to travel. But
exactly. If you're in Birmingham,
if you're there, say earliest 10 o'clock, latest 11 o'clock, you're not going to go.
I mean, that's even going to be maybe a wee bit early.
But you'll get the exact details, so you've got time to get to the exact location.
Yeah,
probably a day or so ahead.
Yeah, exactly. I think
depending on what the intel, because we've got people gathering information at the moment, checking the lie of the land, and doing our homework to make sure that the wrong people aren't hearing about stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're providing a little bit of misinformation and disinformation, following government guidelines, you know, of misinformation.
Careless talk costs lives. Careless talk costs lives.
And then we'll throw the truth out there.
Yeah.
Not after the event, throw the truth. We'll throw the truth before, you know, because, you know, then you don't get dragged into a tribunal like Matt Halfcock, trying to sort of wriggle off the hook again.
Well, I mean, he's, you know, they've got away with murder, haven't they? That's all I'm saying. They've got away with murder. Okay, next thing, Simon, immigration. There was a story that was basically published in the Sun newspaper, and this is a very interesting story. I don't know if you can get it on screen there, Si, if you can just blast that up.
Right.
Anyway, when we started doing our demonstrations in Northern Ireland outside a hotel in Bangor in County Down, the local MP went to great lengths to castigate us and call us racist and despicable and deplorable and disgusting and vile, or whatever else he was calling us. And one of the things he said was that we were spreading misinformation that migrants were involved in attacks on women, sexual assaults, rapes, and even murders. And of course, we said that because the migrants were involved in rapes, indecent assaults, and murders of women. And then it's borne out today by a news story in the Sun. Asylum seeker charged with raping a woman just 40 days after arriving in Britain by dinghy. Now, that story should horrify everybody that's watching this feed, because we've got to remember there's 100,000 of these people came in since, I think, 2016, 2017, 100,000, probably more. They're the ones and the thing is, the 100,000 that the government tells us about, they're the ones that we know about. They're not the ones that have slipped off into the black economy and are working in a kebab shop in Telford. These are the ones that we actually know about, or driving a taxi and picking up young girls, vulnerable girls coming out of a nightclub. These are the ones that we know about. And there have been numerous attacks. The guy that murdered the children at the Ariana Grande concert, yes, he was a British citizen, but he'd been in Libya fighting for the equivalent of ISIS in Libya. He got picked up by a Royal Navy frigate in the Mediterranean and brought back to the UK. And yes, incidentally, his parents were migrants who were radicals who were standing up against Gaddafi in the 1990s. And this is what we've got in the country. And we're bringing in more and more and more fighting age men, single men, putting them in hotels in the center of towns and cities where there's lots of young women out at night, vulnerable women. And then we wonder why something goes wrong. They're coming from cultures that have absolutely zero respect for women. And that can be borne out by the numerous women that I spoke to when I was working with the man who cannot be named on Facebook, when we were working on those films about the grooming scandal. And if you'd heard those stories about what happened to those girls, When you see those sort of headlines and stories that other girls have told me about the way these men that have come from these countries that don't respect women, that mutilate women's clitorises. Let's just be totally frank and honest about what goes on in these countries, that treat women as second-class citizens and beat them whenever they want to and rape them whenever they want to because they think they can rape their wives because that's in their doctrine. And that's what we have to put up with coming into our country en masse. And we're meant to sit down and say nothing. And we're not talking about the people that came to this country in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, the people from the West Indies and people from India. We're talking about people coming in from cultures that are totally alien to our country, cultures that are run by despots and have that ideology sitting over them. And of course, the other problem is, Sam, we can't even talk about that anymore. I can't even name what I'm really talking about here because if I do, we'll all get banned. Exactly. So that's another issue. Well, so the freedom of speech.
All we can really say is that there's lots of footage going around social media at the minute, showing these migrants.
Yep.
And there tend to be ones that came in on the rubber boats, not the ones, that come in through legal means.
Yep.
Just randomly getting undressed in the middle of the street, beating people up, knifing them, kicking them when they're down. I saw a piece of footage today, some black fella kicking the, bejesus out of another black fella on the ground and then getting undressed and squatting over the top of it. And you've got bystanders not wanting to get involved. Well, that's because the bystanders have been emasculated. The women are sensible enough not to get too involved, although we have in our little circle of friends some quite ferocious lionesses, and they would be
Don't we just?
I wouldn't fight them.
Oh no! You'd be a very foolish man.
I value my boyish good looks.
You'd be a very foolish man. They would leave marks. There's no doubt about that.
I don't mind fighting a couple of blokes at the same time, but there's no way I'm fighting a bird.
No. And I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, I think that basically what we need to see, and we need to try and find the people that have that warrior mentality that will stand there and won't back down. And again, that's why I go back to the football lads, because, the football lads have that mentality. They'll stand shoulder to shoulder, and they ain't going to back down. You're not going. It's going to take a very, very formidable force to actually overwhelm a crowd of veterans, particularly infantrymen and people that are from that sort of ilk, and football lads. It's going to be an interesting confrontation. But so there's that. There's the so we've got all these things going on. We've got the cost of living crisis. I mean, and that's the thing as well. I mean, we're well aware when people are traveling to these demonstrations, it is extremely costly. And we're working class people. We don't have huge amounts of money and treasure lying in the bank. And as time goes on, we get less and less of it. It's just a fact of life at the minute. And then we've got the terrible race baiting that's going on. And, I think one of the things I found most disturbing in the last few years is the way that it's completely fine for people to insult people because of the color of their skin, to call them names because of the color of their skin. It's completely acceptable now in polite society. And the skin color that's picked on now, racism's always been vile. I've always hated racism. Anyone that knows me and knows you, Simon, will know that. But the skin color that is most victimized now is the white skin. And I saw again, we'll have to get some of these video clips up. I saw a video clip of some black performance artist in an art gallery, literally, saying the most disgusting things about people who are white. And now, if you flip that and you were saying that about a black man, which would be completely wrong and reprehensible, and people that do that, I've had confrontations with white supremacists just as much as I've had confrontations with the far left. But people that do that against Black and Asian people are quite rightly brought to book for it. But when it comes to doing it against white people, it's totally acceptable. And now, to me, both sides of that divide are equally wrong. And what we need to instill into people, Simon, is this, and it goes back to Martin Luther King Jr. You know, a man or a woman should be judged by the content of their character and not by the color of the skin. And that's whether you're white, whether you're brown, whether you're yellow, whether you're black. It's a pigmentation in your skin. It doesn't matter. And the reality is we're all dolly mixtures at some point in our genealogical history. So I think that's another thing. The race baiting in this country is extremely dangerous. It's going to create two opposing factions. And what I want to see happen in our movement is Black people and white people and Asian people coming together against the common enemy, which is the World Economic Forum, the globalists, the Islamists, the far left, the socialists. These are the people that are trying to screw everybody over and trying to take control. These are the people that are interested. They're not interested in patriotism. They're interested in power. And what people have got to understand about the globalists, the left, the Islamists, and all the rest of them, what they want is power, and they want to control you and they want to control me. Whereas we've always wanted freedom. When we joined the army, we were fighting for people's freedom. In Northern Ireland, we were standing against these scumbags that were planting bombs and shooting people and leaving the bodies on border roads because we wanted people in Northern Ireland to be free from that bondage to these scum that have managed to take over the country. So to me,
the bottom line is we've got quite a hill to climb, and
monumental.
And the 15th of July is going to be the day where it's going to kick off.
Yeah.
So, as we've already said, it's going to be central Birmingham. If you're in Birmingham sometime between 10 and 11 o'clock, then that'll be good. The day before that, you'll probably get an exact location. And we'll probably filter that exact location through different groups by word of mouth even earlier than that. So it's a bit like a Pony Express in the old days, really. One message gets passed to somebody, and then that message gets sort of disseminated around to everybody else within that group, just so that there's not too much coming out visibly through social media. But we've got other things going on as well. So we've got next Saturday, this Saturday coming, the 1st of July, there's a rally in Norwich. And that's being organised by East Anglia Patriots. Andy Reynolds, Glenn Saffer, big lad, very well known throughout the movement. I've been in contact with him now since last Friday about Saturday coming. I'll be down there speaking, so about immigration, funny enough, and the veteran angle on immigration. The Saturday after that, Saturday the 8th of July, there's a rally in Lincoln, and that's all to do with protesting against the migration into RAF Scampton, which, as we know, was home of 617 Squadron, the Dam Busters, also the home of the Vulcan bomber, and probably the most beautiful aircraft ever designed, and also the Red Arrows. We've also got Nigger the dog buried there, and the left want that dug up and moved prior to the migrants going in. Well, it's been buried there since the war. Leave it there and keep the migrants out. Simple as that. It's its grave. You don't desecrate a grave just to please the left and their woke agenda and open border program. Saturday the 15th of July, Brum. Can't go wrong. So I'm going to all three. I'll be speaking at all three. I'll see you all there. If you can make it.
I'm going to be in Birmingham. Obviously, you know, as Simon alluded to at the beginning, I don't live in Great Britain, so I've got to get on a plane every time, or a boat every time I want to come to the homeland. And I love coming to the homeland. Anyone that knows me knows that. So I'll be in Birmingham. Really looking forward to it. Birmingham's going to be a big day because, you know, I think I just want to say this. We've laid out a whole lot of problems there tonight, and there's loads of feeds do that. And my goodness, if you watched half that stuff on YouTube, you would be in a mental institution, you know, wondering what's going on. But the reality is, we've laid out all the problems, and everybody knows the problems. But what do we do? And I'm going to make a few suggestions here, because first of all, the political system in the United Kingdom is completely broken at the minute. It's completely broken. You've got what has been called a mono party. It's basically a party of Conservative, Liberal, Lib Dems, Labour, and they all agree on everything, absolutely everything, apart from a few dissidents in the Conservative Party that basically nominally supported it. But they don't none of the people that I see in Parliament represent the people. They might have got votes from the people, but they don't represent them. So we need to find a way of changing that. And to me, the only way we can change this now is by a mass mobilization of the real people. So the 15th is going to be about, there's not going to be any politicians there. We're not going to have any politicians. And I'm going to say this is going to upset a lot of people, but the micro parties on the right, I wouldn't vote for any of them. I wouldn't vote for the Labour Party. I wouldn't vote for the Conservative Party. There's a couple of parties in Northern Ireland that I'd vote for because they are genuinely patriotic. But I don't trust any of the parties that we've got formed at the minute. So what we need to do is not start a political party because we've been there, done that, worn the T-shirt. What we need to do is start a mass movement of people that will then become a voting bloc. And that voting bloc then dictates to the politicians what they do. And if they don't do what they're told to do, they get booted out of power. Now, that's a bit different to starting a political party. So that's what I think my idea of how we solve this is. We form a mass voting bloc. It'll take time. We'll probably not have it done by the next election. But after 4 years of Labour misrule, people will be begging for something different and something fairly radical. And the other thing is that mass mobilization has to be a mobilization on the streets, because it has to be a mobilization that puts boots on the ground. And when there's a problem like Honor Oak, now, okay, there's not massive numbers there, but there's enough numbers at Honor Oak, even if it's only 50 or 100, to disrupt what's going on there and to make it a policing issue and to get that in front of the UK media on a weekly basis. And obviously some good guys there from TP UK have been doing some fantastic work in handling the media and so on and so forth. But we need to mobilize, and we've had enough of being controlled by political parties or by grifters or by people who don't have the country's interests at heart. And what we need is a people's movement where the people have a voice, and it's ordinary people that are speaking. It's not people who have an agenda and who want to make money off the back of it or want to get themselves in a position of political power out the back of it. We want to see the real people who really care about the country have a voice. And that's a lot of what the 15th is going to be about. And it's not just for football lads and veterans. As we know, there's the patriotic women who are absolutely fantastic and always turn out. And like Simon said,
the
lionesses, you don't want to mess. You don't want to mess with the lionesses. Remember, the lionesses. We're not into this sort of transsexual sex change malarkey. But I tell you what, the lionesses have bigger balls than most of the men in England, and that's the truth.
Yeah. Remind everybody, if they cannot make it to Birmingham because Birmingham's too far, and I understand that, because every time I go away for a weekend, you're out 200 quid easy. If you stop over one night, by the time you've had your return train fare, it's 200 quid gone. You do that 3 or 4 times in a month, that's your wages gone, and you haven't even paid your bills. So we're fully aware. But on the same day, July the 15th, is another demonstration going on in Scarborough. get yourselves up to that. That looks like it's going to be a big one as well. A lot of the football lads that cannot make it to Birmingham are going to Scarborough. So if Scarborough's close, go to that. If you can get to Birmingham, fantastic. What you don't want to be doing is sitting indoors saying, "Oh, I wish I'd gone to that now." So do something. Don't sit idle. Isn't that right, Richard?
I would say go to Birmingham.
But it depends on money restraint.
Even if you have to get even if you get on a push bike or a horse, go to Birmingham.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
But that's just me. But no, I mean, look, it's going to be great. I mean, I think what's happening, Simon, is people are waking up again, and you know, obviously that they've seen what the government's done, they've seen what's happening. I think there's more people. The encouraging thing is more people awake now than ever, but the discouraging thing is the state is getting better and better at controlling and manipulating the media and the social media. And with when the internet harms legislation is on the statute book, we're going to have a real problem with social media, and we're going to have to find other ways of communicating, like you were alluding to earlier, Simon. So yeah, guys, get to Birmingham.
He's another guy, great patriot, travels all around the country, does some fantastic video work, gets it all up on social media. He's not bothered who he supports, as long as the group that he's supporting is supporting the right thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think we're all like that now.
Yeah. So, it's not a matter of, I don't like him, I don't like her. If they're supporting what you support, get out there and do it.
Exactly.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Whoever said that, but I like it.
Yeah.
And I keep using it.
It's very true.
But it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, it's true, Simon. It's absolutely true.
Common enemy, and our common enemy starts at government and works through to the UN, I would suggest.
Absolutely. I mean, they really. The problem is we've got people in government who don't have our best interests at heart. It's as simple as that. They don't care about they can't identify as, they know nothing about the working class. And the Labour Party is going to be a disaster if they get into power. It's going to be catastrophic for the working class and for the normal working people that just want to look after their families, feed their families, have enough money to go to the pub, and just want to live a nice life. And that's been taken away from people. And I think we need to mobilize. I think the working class of this country need to mobilize and not be railroaded by people on either of the extremes. Britain's always been a tolerant, kind country, and we need to make sure that it stays that way.
Yeah. Right. Great. I think that's it.
Superb.
We've exhausted an hour.
I think we have. It went so quickly, Simon.
It did go quick tonight. Yeah.
Good conversation, mate. Good conversation.
We've obviously got a lot on this weekend with Norwich. So I'm already on my third draft of a speech for Norwich, but I'll get it right in the next 2 days. So if you're watching, Glenn, don't panic. It's all good. It's in here. And then next week we'll do another live show with Richard and bring another update.
Let's do it. And Glenn,
just to be able to see some more information out with regard to the 15th by then.
And if Glenn's watching this, mate, if you can get to Birmingham, mate, get to Birmingham. I haven't seen you for ages, and it would be great to see you, fella, because you're one of the best. So come to Birmingham, mate. You're obviously you're more than welcome. It'd be great to see you. And anyone else that's from back in the day that enjoyed coming to our demos, enjoyed Simon speaking and me speaking and other people, come on to Birmingham. It's going to be good. It's going to be a really, really good day. And it's going from whatever time it starts in the morning till about 5 o'clock at night. So it's going to be a good day. It's going to be good fun.
When it's over, isn't it?
Exactly. It's not over till the fat lady sings.
Yeah, that's it. Right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks ever so much for your time, your valuable time. I'm sure you'd rather be doing other stuff than listening to myself and Harry here. But it's appreciated because it means that you're locked in, you're awake. Let's wake the rest of them up and let's really sort of surge forward and turn things around. for
There's
the
a guy just said in the comments, Simon, Edinburgh was the last time that he heard us speak, and you were at Edinburgh, weren't you? We were both at Edinburgh. Yeah, we both spoke at Edinburgh. Yeah. Well, Martin, get yourself, if you can get to Birmingham, mate, it'd be great to see you. Just come down.
Martin Dalton happens to be my very bestie friend.
I remember meeting him in the pub. I met him in the pub with you. We had a pint together after the demo.
And he's a Birmingham man.
There we go.
So
yeah, that'd be great, man.
All good.
Come on down.
All good.
Right, guys. Fantastic, Simon. Thank you so much, mate. And I'll see you all next week.
Love you loads.
You
Take care. Bye-bye. Be safe. These call signs are
out.